English Leap Podcast.
With your favorite teacher. Hello, everyone, and a huge welcome back to your favorite teacher's English Leap podcast. This is your go-to space for mastering natural English while we chat about the big and small things in life. I'm Sarah, and I'm joined by Jack.
Haha, okay. Quick question before we dive deep and get all wise today.
Oh no, that usually means trouble. I'm ready though.
It does. All right, everyone listening, imagine this. You wake up on a Tuesday, you reach for your phone, and the headlines are just bright red everywhere. Iran, Ukraine, Israel, the US, Russia. It feels like the entire world is a giant chessboard and someone just walked by and kicked it over. Sarah, if you had to explain this war environment we are living in to a 5-year-old without making them cry, how would you even start?
Wow, Jack, you really don't start with the easy stuff, do you? That is a real head-scratcher, as we say. Honestly, I'd probably tell them that sometimes the grown-ups who run the world forget how to share their toys and start making really bad choices that hurt everyone else. But for our listeners, who are definitely not 5, we need to look at what experts call the geopolitical heat map.
Geopolitical heat map? That sounds like a weather report for an apocalypse. Is it as scary as it sounds?
It can be, but it's actually a very useful way to understand the world. Think of it like a map where certain areas are overheating. When tensions between countries get so hot that they break out into actual fighting, we call those areas flashpoints. Right now, in early 2026, we have a few major flashpoints that are staying red hot.
Right, and the one that's been on the news the longest has to be Russia and Ukraine. I feel like I've been reading about that forever now. It's been years, hasn't it?
It has. We are now entering the 5th year of this conflict. It's no longer just a border dispute. It has turned into what we call a war of attrition.
Oh, attrition. That's a heavy-duty word. I've heard it in business, like employee attrition. But in war, what does that actually look like?
Great catch. In business, it means losing people. In war, it's like a marathon where the goal isn't to run fast, but to see who collapses first. A war of attrition is when both sides try to wear the other down until one runs out of soldiers, money, or equipment. It's slow, it's painful, and it's exhausting for the whole world to watch.
So it's a stalemate, like in chess when neither person can move?
Precisely, a stalemate, but it's a high-tech stalemate. We're seeing drone dominance now. Instead of just soldiers in trenches, we have these massive strike packages, hundreds of AI-guided drones being launched at once. It's devastatingly efficient, which is a terrifying thing to say about war.
That's wild. It's like science fiction, but it's actually happening. And then if we shift our eyes to the Middle East, it feels even more tangled. I keep hearing about the Iran-Israel-USA triangle. It's like a movie where everyone is pointing a gun at everyone else.
It really is a volatile situation. Volatile is a great word for English learners. It means something that can change or explode at any second. Lately, the focus has been on the Strait of Hormuz. Have you heard that name popping up?
All the time, but honestly, Sarah, I'm a bit embarrassed to ask. Is that just a fancy name for a narrow bit of water, or is it actually a big deal?
Oh, Jack, never be embarrassed. It's actually the most important choke point in the world. Think of the Strait of Hormuz as the jugular vein of the global economy.
The jugular? Like the vein in your neck? That's a bit graphic.
It is, but it's accurate. If you pinch that vein, the body stops working. About 20% of the world's oil and gas flows through that tiny strip of water. Right now, Iran is using it as leverage.
Leverage? That's like using a secret to get what you want.
Exactly. Leverage is using something you control to gain an advantage. Iran is basically saying, if the US or Israel pushes us too hard, we close the tap. If that tap closes, gas prices everywhere, from London to New York to Tokyo, would skyrocket. That's why the US has been conducting sustained airstrikes on command centers recently.
Sustained. I know that word, like a sustained note in music.
Spot on. In this context, sustained means they aren't just hitting once and leaving. They are keeping the pressure on. They are trying to degrade the enemy's capacities.
Degrade. Usually I use that word when someone says something mean to me, like stop degrading me. But I guess the military isn't worried about hurt feelings.
Right. In military English, to degrade means to systematically destroy equipment, communication lines, or weapons so the other side simply can't fight back effectively. It's all part of this dangerous game of brinkmanship.
Brinkmanship. Okay, that sounds like a sport for people who love stress and coffee.
You're not right. Brinkmanship is when you push a situation to the very brink, the very edge of disaster, to force the other side to back down. It's like two cars driving towards each other at 100 miles per hour to see who swerves first. It's a terrifying way to run a planet.
No kidding. And while these drivers are playing chicken, what's the deal with Gaza? I heard there was a ceasefire, but every time I turn on the TV, it looks like the fighting hasn't stopped.
You've hit on a very sad reality. A ceasefire is an agreement to stop fighting, but on the ground, things are often much messier. We're seeing sporadic violence and civil unrest. There's a big push right now for a technocratic government to step in.
A techno what? Did they hire a bunch of DJs?
Not quite, though that might be more fun. A technocratic government is a government run by experts, economists, engineers, doctors, rather than politicians. The idea is that these experts can rebuild the infrastructure without the political baggage of the warring parties.
Oh, I see. So it's like hiring a professional cleaning crew because the people living in the house can't stop fighting over who owns the sofa.
That is a perfect analogy, Jack. I'm going to steal that. But the problem is always sovereignty.
Sovereignty. That's one of those noble words, isn't it? It sounds like something from a king's speech.
It is. Sovereignty is the right of a country to govern itself without anyone else poking their nose in. The challenge is that in 2026, your sovereignty often crashes into your neighbour's security concerns. It's a giant, messy spiderweb.
And we're all the little flies caught in it, right? Watching the gas prices go up and the news get darker.
Sometimes it feels like that, but that's why we're doing this. Understanding the vocabulary of survival helps us process the fear. When you hear de-escalation on the news, you'll know they are trying to turn the heat down on that map.
De-escalation, I like that word. It sounds like taking the escalator down instead of up to the roof.
Exactly. It's the process of making a conflict less intense. We all want it, but the geopolitical interests are just so tangled.
Well, my brain is definitely overheating a little bit now. That was a lot of heat for one map.
I hear you. But before we get into the heavy emotional stuff in the next part, I want our listeners to really sit with these terms. We're not just learning words, we're learning how the world talks about its own survival.
Right. I think I need a second to process that Strait of Hormuz jugular vein thing. It's going to make me think twice next time I fill up my car.
As it should. Take a breath, everyone. In part 2, we're going to move away from the maps and the missiles and talk about the invisible scars, the things the cameras don't always show.
I'm ready. Let's keep going.
Welcome back, everyone. In part 1, Jack and I looked at the geopolitical heat map, the big, scary picture of who is fighting whom and where the world's choke points are. But now, I want us to zoom in.
Zoom in? Like past the missiles and the maps?
Exactly. We're going to talk about the invisible scars of war. You know, when we see news footage, we usually see buildings falling down or smoke rising from a city. But for every building that falls, there are thousands of lives that are being quietly dismantled.
Dismantled. That's a powerful word. Like taking apart a machine piece by piece?
Exactly, Jack. Except the machine is a person's life. Their job, their children's school, their morning coffee routine, it all just vanishes. One day you're worrying about your Wi Fi speed, and the next you're worrying if there's enough bread in the entire city. This brings us to a term we see a lot: internally displaced persons, or IDPs.
Wait, I usually hear the word refugee. Is an IDP different?
Great eye for detail. Yes, they are different. A refugee is someone who has crossed an international border to find safety, but an IDP, an internally displaced person, is someone who has fled their home but is still inside their own country.
Oh, I see. So if I live in Kyiv and I have to run to a village in western Ukraine, I'm an IDP. But if I cross into Poland, I'm a refugee.
Precisely. And right now, between Ukraine, Gaza, and parts of the Middle East, we are seeing the highest numbers of displaced people in modern history. Imagine the emotional toll of that. You aren't just losing a house, you're losing your sense of place.
Sense of place. I think I get that. It's like when I go to my grandmother's house and I smell her cooking. That's my place. If that house is gone, where does that feeling go?
It's a profound loss, Jack. Profound means deep, intense, and far reaching. It's not just a surface level sadness, it's a trauma that stays in the bones. And it's not just about people, it's about cultural heritage.
Cultural heritage? You mean like old statues and museums?
Yes, but also the stories, the music, and the vibe of a city. When a historic neighborhood in Gaza or an ancient church in Ukraine is destroyed, a piece of human history is deleted. We call this irreversible loss. You can't just control Z a thousand-year-old library.
Wow. Irreversible. Once it's gone forever. That makes me think about the kids. I mean, if you're 10 years old and your school is now a pile of bricks, what happens to your future?
That is the lost generation risk we talk about in sociology. When infrastructure, which is the basic systems like schools, roads, and hospitals, is destroyed, the education gap becomes a canyon. Kids lose years of learning. But even worse is the psychological scarring.
You mean like PTSD?
Exactly, post-traumatic stress disorder. But in these war zones, it's often complex trauma because the danger never actually stops. There's no post because the trauma is still happening every single day.
That's heavy, Sarah. I'm sitting here in a comfortable chair with a coffee, and it feels, I don't know, almost guilty to be talking about it so calmly. Is there a word for that?
You are experiencing survivor's guilt, Jack. It's very common. It's that uneasy feeling you get when you realize you are safe while others are suffering through no fault of their own. It's actually a sign of empathy.
Empathy. Being able to feel what someone else is feeling, right.
Exactly. And empathy is what helps us understand the humanitarian crisis. When we talk about scarcity, another great vocab word, we're talking about the lack of basic needs: clean water, medicine, electricity. In a war environment, scarcity becomes a weapon.
Wait, water can be a weapon? How?
If you cut off the pipes to a city, you don't need missiles to defeat them. You just wait. It's calculated cruelty. And the emotional hook here for our listeners is to realize that peace isn't just the absence of bombs. Peace is the presence of normalcy.
Normalcy. The ability to just be boring, to go to work and complain about the rain.
Yes, we don't realize how beautiful boring is until it's taken away. People in war zones would give anything for a boring Monday morning.
Man, that really puts things in perspective. You know, we talk about these countries like they're just names on a map. Iran, Russia, Israel. But every single one of them is filled with people who just want their kids to grow up and be happy.
That's the universal truth that war tries to hide. War makes us see the other as an enemy or a statistic. But when you look at the invisible scars, you realize the pain is the same in every language.
Right. Whether you're crying in Ukrainian, Hebrew, Arabic, or English, a tear is still a tear.
That was actually quite poetic, Jack. You're getting the hang of this.
I'm trying, but it's hard not to get bogged down in the sadness of it all. Bogged down, that means stuck in the mud, right?
It does, and that's why we have to talk about resilience. This is my favorite word in the English language.
Resilience. I've heard that one. It's like a rubber band.
Perfect. It's the ability to be stretched, pushed, and squeezed by life and still snap back. We see incredible resilience in these conflict zones. Teachers holding classes in basements, doctors performing surgery by candlelight, musicians playing cellos in the middle of ruined streets.
Oh, I've seen those videos. It's heartbreaking, but inspiring?
It's both. It's the human spirit refusing to be extinguished. To extinguish a fire means to put it out. War tries to extinguish hope, but resilience keeps the fire burning.
So we have the scars, which are the damage, but we have resilience, which is the healing.
Exactly. And as English learners, when you talk about these topics, it's important to use nuance. You don't just want to say war is bad. Everyone knows that. You want to talk about the multifaceted impact.
Multifaceted, like a diamond with many sides.
You're on fire today, Jack. Yes. Multi means many, and faceted means faces or sides. The impact of war is multifaceted. It's economic, it's psychological, it's cultural, and it's generational.
Generational. So it's like a hand-me-down trauma, like an old sweater your parents give you that you didn't really want?
Exactly. We call that intergenerational trauma. The children of war carry the fears of their parents. It takes a long time to break the cycle.
Breaking the cycle. That sounds like the first step towards peace.
It really is, but before we can talk about peace, we have to understand how these wars affect us, even if we live thousands of miles away.
You mean the butterfly effect?
Spot on. That's exactly what we're diving into in part 3, why a tank in Europe makes your grocery bill go up in South America.
Oh man, my wallet is already sweating.
Don't worry, we'll break it down simply. Everyone, take a moment to think about that word resilience. How have you been resilient in your own life? We'll be right back.
See you in a bit.
You know, Jack, I was thinking about what you said earlier about your wallet sweating. It sounds funny, but it's actually a very real phenomenon that economists study. We call it the butterfly effect of modern warfare.
The butterfly effect? I think I saw a movie about that once. Is it like when a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil and causes a tornado in Texas?
Exactly. But in our world, it's more like a tank crossing a border in Eastern Europe, causing the price of a loaf of bread to double in Egypt. Or a ship being stopped in the Middle East, making the cost of heating a home in Germany go through the roof. Everything is interconnected.
Interconnected. That's a good word. It's like we're all tied together with invisible strings, right? You pull one string over here, and everyone over there feels the tug.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. We live in an era of global interdependence. No country is an island anymore. Well, geographically some are, but economically, not a chance. When a major conflict breaks out, it creates what we call a supply chain disruption.
Supply chain. I hear that on the news all the time. Is that just a fancy way of saying the truck didn't show up?
Essentially, yes, but on a massive global scale. Think of the supply chain as the journey a product takes from being a raw material in the ground to being a finished phone in your pocket. War acts like a giant bottleneck in that journey.
A bottleneck, like when 3 lanes of traffic have to squeeze into one.
Precisely. And when things get squeezed, they get expensive. This leads to inflationary pressure. That's why your grocery bill is getting crazy, as you put it.
Oh, wow. So when I'm complaining about the price of eggs, I'm actually complaining about the geopolitical instability in the Black Sea. That makes me sound much more sophisticated.
It really does. But look at Ukraine, for example. It's often called the breadbasket of the world. They produce a huge percentage of the world's grain, sunflower oil, and corn. When the ports are blocked or the fields are full of mines, the global supply drops.
And when the supply drops, the demand stays the same, so the price goes up. Basic economics, right?
You've got it. But it's not just food. We have to talk about energy security. Remember when we talked about the Strait of Hormuz being the jugular vein of the world?
Oh, I haven't stopped thinking about that. It's such a vivid image.
Well, imagine if that vein is pinched. A huge amount of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes through there. If a conflict between Iran and the US escalates, the volatility of the oil market goes wild.
Volatility. That means it's jumping up and down like a pogo stick?
Yes, a volatile market is one where prices change rapidly and unpredictably. This creates economic anxiety for regular people. If you don't know if it will cost $50 or $100 to fill your car next week, you stop spending money on other things.
Right. You stop going to the movies or buying new shoes, and then the local shops suffer. It's a ripple effect.
Ripple effect, great idiom, Jack. Like dropping a stone in a pond, the ripples spread far beyond where the stone hit the water. And there's another layer to this: sanctions.
Oh, I know that word. That's when countries say, we aren't going to trade with you because you're being a bully, right?
Exactly. Sanctions are economic penalties. They're a way to punish a country without using bombs, but sanctions are a double-edged sword.
A double-edged sword, so it cuts both ways.
Right. If the US and Europe place heavy sanctions on Russian oil, it hurts the Russian economy, yes, but it also means there's less oil available for everyone else, which drives up the prices for the people who moved the sanctions in the first place. It's a very delicate balance.
It sounds like everyone's trying to outmaneuver each other, but everyone ends up getting a bit hurt in the process.
That's the grim reality of a globalized world. We also see this in technology. Did you know that a lot of the neon gas used to make microchips comes from Ukraine? Or that Russia is a huge supplier of nickel and palladium for car batteries?
No way. So if I want to buy a new electric car, I'm actually dependent on the diplomatic relations between Moscow and the West.
100%. Even your smart devices are part of the war environment. This is why we call it hybrid warfare. It's not just fought with tanks, it's fought with trade barriers and cyber attacks.
Cyber attacks. Now that's scary. That's like someone fighting a war from their laptop while sitting in a coffee shop.
It really is. We're seeing more disinformation campaigns too. This is a huge part of the psychological hook we mentioned earlier. War today isn't just about capturing territory, it's about capturing the narrative.
The narrative. That's the story people believe, right?
Precisely. In English, when we say controlling the narrative, we mean influencing how the public perceives the situation. With social media, fake news and propaganda travel faster than the truth. It creates a state of perpetual confusion.
Perpetual. That means it never ends.
Correct. Perpetual means never ending. It leads to what doctors are now calling headline stress disorder. People feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of negative news. They feel powerless.
You know what? I actually feel that sometimes. You look at your phone, you see a flash point on the map, you see your bank account shrinking because of inflation, and you just want to switch off.
We've all been there, Jack. Switching off is a natural defense mechanism. But as English learners, being able to talk about these things actually gives you a bit of power back. You're not just a passive observer anymore. You can articulate your concerns.
Articulate. That means to speak clearly and effectively, right?
Exactly. When you can articulate the nuance of why you're worried, whether it's food security, energy prices, or the humanitarian fallout, you're engaging with the world as a global citizen.
Global citizen. I like the sound of that. It makes me feel like I'm part of the solution, even if I'm just a guy with a podcast and a slightly more expensive grocery bill.
You are part of the solution, Jack. Awareness is the first step towards advocacy. And speaking of solutions, that's exactly where we're headed next. We've talked about the heat, the scars, and the ripples. Now we need to talk about the architecture of peace.
The architecture of peace. Does that involve building a giant wall around the bullies?
Not quite. It's more about building bridges and diplomatic frameworks. It's much harder than building a wall, but it's the only way to de escalate the planet.
Well, I'm ready for some hope vocabulary. My brain is a bit tired of all these shocks and stresses.
I don't blame you. Let's take a little breather, and then we'll look at how the world actually tries to mend what has been broken.
Sounds like a plan. I'll go grab another coffee. Hopefully the price hasn't gone up in the last 10 minutes.
Hope you better hurry. We'll be right back.
So, we've looked at the maps, the scars, and the way the world's pockets are hurting. It's a lot, isn't it? It can feel like the world is just one big powder keg waiting for a match.
A powder keg? Is that like a barrel of gunpowder?
Exactly. It's a classic English idiom. If a situation is a powder keg, it means it's extremely dangerous and could explode into violence at any moment. But believe it or not, there are people whose entire jobs are to keep the matches away from the keg. We call this the architecture of peace.
Architecture. That makes it sound like building a skyscraper. Is peace something you actually build, or is it just what happens when people get tired of fighting?
That's a common misconception, Jack. Peace isn't just the absence of war. If you just stop fighting because you're tired, that's just a pause. True peace is something you have to engineer and maintain. It requires a lot of diplomacy.
Ah, diplomacy. That's one of those words that makes me think of guys in expensive suits, sitting in very cold rooms, drinking sparkling water.
You aren't entirely wrong, but diplomacy is really just the art of the possible. It's about finding a way for two people, or two countries, who absolutely hate each other to agree on something, even if it's just agreeing on what time to meet.
So it's like a very, very high-stakes negotiation, like when I try to convince my landlord not to raise the rent.
Precisely, but with existential consequences. In diplomacy, we talk about red lines. Have you heard that term?
Yeah, like don't cross this line or else.
Right. A red line is a limit that a country says it will not allow anyone to cross. The problem is, when everyone has different red lines that overlap, you get a deadlock. To break that deadlock, you need a mediator.
A mediator. That's like a referee, right? Someone who doesn't take sides.
Exactly. A neutral third party. Think of countries like Switzerland or sometimes Qatar or Oman. They provide a safe space for enemies to talk. This is where back-channel communications happen.
Back channel. That sounds very spy movie. Is it secret?
It often is. Back-channel means unofficial or private talks that happen away from the cameras. It's where the real concessions are made.
Concessions. That's when you give up something to get something else.
Spot on. If I want you to stop building missiles, I might have to concede and lift some of those sanctions we talked about earlier. It's a quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo. Latin. Look at you being all fancy, Sarah.
It's very common in legal and political English. It just means this for that. I give you this, you give me that. But here's the tricky part. Trust. How do you trust someone who was shooting at you yesterday?
I wouldn't. I'd be sleeping with one eye open.
And that's why we have international law and the United Nations. They act as the guarantors of a peace deal. They are the ones who monitor the situation to make sure no one is cheating.
Monitor? Like a computer monitor?
No, as a verb, to monitor means to watch something closely to see if it changes or if people are following the rules. We have peacekeeping forces, those soldiers in the blue helmets who stand in the middle of the buffer zone.
A buffer zone. Is that like a no man's land?
Exactly. It's a space between two enemies where no one is allowed to have weapons. It's a physical de-escalation tactic. But even with all these frameworks, peace is fragile.
Fragile, like a glass vase. One wrong move and smash.
Exactly. It takes years to build a peace treaty, but only seconds to break it. This is why deterrence is so important in 2026.
Deterrence. That sounds like detergent. Is it related to cleaning?
No, not quite. Deterrence comes from the word deter, which means to discourage someone from doing something by making them afraid of the consequences. It's the don't mess with me because I have a big stick strategy.
Oh, like peace through strength.
Right. But the ultimate goal of the architecture of peace isn't just not fighting, it's reconciliation.
Reconciliation. That's a long one. Reconciliation.
It's a beautiful word, Jack. It's when the two sides don't just stop fighting, but they actually start to mend the relationship. They admit their mistakes. They have truth and reconciliation commissions, like they had in South Africa.
Wow, so they actually sit down and talk about the invisible scars we mentioned earlier.
Yes, they try to humanize the enemy again, because war dehumanizes people. They make them into targets instead of neighbors. Reconciliation is the process of turning a target back into a human.
That sounds incredibly difficult. I mean, if someone hurt my family, I don't know if I could ever sit across a table from them.
It is the hardest work in the world, Jack, truly. It's much easier to pull a trigger than it is to offer a handshake, but that's why civil society is so important.
Civil society? You mean regular people like us?
Exactly. Teachers, doctors, artists, students. When regular people from country A start talking to regular people from country B, they realize they both just want the same thing: stability.
Stability. A world where you can plan for the future without worrying about the heat map exploding.
Right. And as English learners, you are actually part of this architecture of peace. By learning a global language, you're building a bridge. You can talk to people from different cultures and dispel myths.
Dispel myths. That means to bust the ghosts of lies.
Yes, to dispel means to make a doubt or a feeling disappear. When you talk to someone from a rival country in English, you dispel the idea that they are evil or monsters. You find common ground.
Common ground. That's a great idiom. It's the land we both agree on.
Exactly. So while the news focuses on the breakdowns and the clashes, remember that there is a whole army of people working on the buildup of peace. It's slow, it's boring, and it's complicated, but it's the only thing that works.
Well, I'm feeling a bit more optimistic now, Sarah. Optimistic, that's the glasses half full feeling, right?
It is, and we're going to need that optimism for our final section. We've covered a lot of heavy territory today, and I want to make sure our listeners have a way to process it all and actually practice what they've learned.
Right. I'm ready for the recap and some homework. I hope it's not too hard.
It'll be a piece of cake, Jack, I promise.
A piece of cake? Now I'm hungry. Let's wrap this up.
One more quick break, and then we'll bring it all home.
Here we are, everyone. We've travelled from the geopolitical heat map to the invisible scars, through the butterfly effect, and finally into the architecture of peace. It's been a long journey today, hasn't it, Jack?
Phew, you can say that again, Sarah. My brain feels like it's been through a marathon of complexity. I'm not going to lie, I feel a bit somber after everything we've talked about.
Somber. That's a perfect word for this mood. It means serious, sensible, and maybe a little bit sad. It's a very natural reaction to talking about war, but we can't leave our listeners there. We need to find the silver lining.
The silver lining? Like the shiny edge of a dark cloud?
Exactly. It's the hope in a difficult situation. And for me, the hope is in micro-peace.
Micro peace? Is that like a tiny version of a peace treaty? Do I need a magnifying glass?
Not quite. Macro peace is what the presidents and generals do, but micro peace is what you and I do every day. It's how we handle conflict in our own lives, with our neighbours, our co-workers, or even people on the internet who disagree with us.
Oh, I see. So if I don't escalate an argument with someone who cut me off in traffic, I'm practicing micro peace.
Exactly. You are practicing self-regulation. If we can't find peace in our own hearts and communities, how can we expect the global heat map to cool down? It all starts with human connection.
That makes me feel a bit more empowered. Empowered. That's when you feel like you actually have the power to change things, right?
Spot on. And one of the most empowering things you can do as a language learner is to bridge the gap between cultures. Every time you use English to understand someone from a different part of the world, you are dismantling a wall.
Dismantling a wall. I love that. Okay, Sarah, before we get to the homework, I think I need a grand recap. We used some seriously heavyweight vocabulary today.
You're right. Let's do a lightning round recap. I'll give you a word, and you tell me what it means in your own words. Ready?
I was born ready. Let's go.
First one, flashpoint.
Easy. A flashpoint is a place on the map where things are overheating and could explode into a fight.
Perfect. How about war of attrition?
That's the marathon of war. Both sides trying to wear each other down until someone runs out of steam.
Great. Sovereignty.
That's a country's right to be the boss of its own land without others interfering.
Excellent. Now let's go to the emotional stuff. Resilience.
The rubber band effect, being pushed by life but snapping back and refusing to give up.
IDPs.
Internally displaced persons, people who lost their homes but are still stuck inside their own country.
You're on fire, Jack. Okay, what about the butterfly effect?
That's when a shock in one place, like a war in Ukraine, causes a ripple effect everywhere else, like making my grocery bill skyrocket.
And finally, reconciliation.
That's the handshake after the fight. It's the long, hard work of mending a relationship and seeing the other person as a human again.
Jack, I am so impressed. You've mastered some of the most difficult concepts in English geopolitical discourse.
Thanks, Sarah. It feels good to be able to articulate these big ideas. But now I'm nervous. Is it time for the homework and practice section?
It is, but it's designed to help our listeners internalize everything we talked about.
All right, everyone listening, grab your notebooks or your phones. Sarah, what's the mission for today?
Okay, here is your English Leap Challenge. It has 2 parts.
Part 1?
Part 1, I want you to choose one flashpoint we talked about today. It could be the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the tensions in the Middle East, or even a conflict closer to your home. I want you to write a short paragraph, maybe 5 or 6 sentences, explaining the humanitarian impact of that conflict. Use at least 3 of our expert words from today.
Ooh, that's a good one. Words like resilience or scarcity or profound.
Exactly. And part 2 is the voice mission. I want you to record a short voice note for yourself, or even better, post it in our community comments. Imagine you're a mediator. What is one concession you would ask both sides to make to achieve de-escalation?
Wow, so we're playing the diplomat now.
Why not? We need more diplomats in the world. Speaking your ideas out loud is the best way to move from passive learning to active fluency.
Active fluency. I like that. It's not just knowing the words, it's using them to change the world, even in a small way.
Precisely. Remember, everyone, these topics are heavy, but avoidance isn't the answer. Engagement is. When you learn how to talk about the dark parts of the world, you bring a little bit of light into the conversation.
That's a beautiful way to end, Sarah. I'm feeling much more grounded now. Grounded. That's like feeling stable and calm, right?
Yes, Jack, you are officially grounded. No pun intended.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Don't forget to do your homework. We want to hear your peace paragraphs and your mediator moments.
We really do. Thank you for being part of the English Leap community. Your dedication to learning is what keeps this podcast going. Until next time, keep practicing, keep empathizing, and keep learning.
See you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.